Hello everyone, my name is Peter Chai. I'm really glad to open this roundtable talk titled An Introduction to Academic Writing. So me, along with two other graduate students at the Graduate School of Political Science, Waseda University, will be talking about some of our own experiences and some tips on academic writing and how to write a thesis. So here is a brief outline of our roundtable talk today. We'll first be talking about the purpose of this workshop, and then I will be talking about the structure of academic writing, especially writing a thesis. And then I will be talking about some general do's and don'ts for writing a thesis, and we will also be talking about some helpful online resources to improve our academic writing and to manage our references and citations. We will conclude today's roundtable talk by having a Q&A session if you have any questions, and we will be talking about our own experiences and to see if we could help you with your questions. As for the purpose of our workshop today, we want to provide some general tips on writing academic papers and graduation thesis based on our own experiences. And we will go through some necessary considerations to be made during each stage of developing an empirical paper, which includes conveying the research gap, the question, and the significance of our research, needing a logical literature review, and explaining the data sources and methodological decisions, communicating the statistical results, addressing the potential limitations, and suggesting room for future studies. Although we will basically be taking examples from the social sciences, I believe some of the techniques and tools we'll be mentioning today will also benefit those from other majors and areas of research. When we talk about social science as a modern science, we have a specific universal structure to follow when we write something. So here is an outline of the structure of a paper or a thesis. For a paper, we normally have the abstract and the keywords. And if you're writing a thesis, you normally have a table of contents because it's quite long. As for the abstract, it's normally around 100 to 300 words. And the basic idea of an abstract is to explain your research contribution and convey your research results to the readers and indicate whether you contrast with the results in the literature or you confirm the results in the literature. As for the keywords, it's normally 3 to 6, and it should overview the research topic, the literature, and the issues of focus. For example, if you're writing a paper in economics, the JEL, the Journal of Economic Literature Classification, is a common standard. If you're writing a thesis, then you should have a table of contents in the first page so that it helps the readers understand the development of your arguments and your research. So regarding the topic introduction and theme overview, you shouldn't just assume that all the readers are very, very familiar with the field you are researching. So it is a good idea to give some brief explanations for research motivations and the background knowledge of the field and outline the general procedures, steps, and stages of your methodology. Regarding the background information, you should have a literature review that explains the previous series and why you consider your current research is important. Whether you are using any updated evidence or different approaches to test old series, or you want to shed light on the old series and old studies with a focus on a larger area, a larger region of the world, or some other time series in history. So you should always state which kind of research gap you are tackling, and to state whether there were some limitations, problems, or flaws in previous studies, and you want to improve that with your own approach. So if you're writing an empirical paper, you need a section on theoretical underpinnings. You need mathematical representations, some equations, formulas to specify your variables of interest and to specify your regressional analysis. And also, you need to state clearly your research assumptions and specifications, especially if you're employing an econometric approach. And importantly, You state your hypotheses so that the readers can easily understand what kind of hypotheses you have and how you want to test them. As for the research methodology part, you should clearly state how you constructed your data, what are your data sources, and how you collected them, and even cleaned them, so that the readers can understand how there would be some kind of biases or sampling errors in your data. And you should have a table or a chart that explain your summary statistics, including things like the mean, the median, standard deviation, quartiles, maximum and minimum, and so that the readers can understand the distribution of the variables you are explaining. And also, if you have regressions, it is important that you have scatter plots and you have the regressional tables that contain essential information related to your regressional analysis. And also, some statistical tests, such as t-tests, f-tests, and causality tests, so that the readers will understand how your results, how your findings are relevant, and how your findings are strong and robust to different specifications. If you are doing research in the social sciences, some common software that we are using to run analysis in regressions include the RStudio, the Stata, SPSS, even MATLAB, and Python. And then we come to the research results section. So basically, apart from the regressional tables, the summary statistics, you have overview in your paper. You should also summarize the key figures and explore the implications of your research, and state clearly how your research contribute to the literature, whether it is different or similar to the results found by previous scholars. And you should compare them, apparently, with some other contemporary research in the field. And also, you should have a section on self-evaluation to state how there might be some biases embedded in your own methodology, your own data, and your own regressions. Some of the important challenges that we often talk about include the case selection bias and the missing variables, and also the reverse causation. So these are some of the points researchers could mention in their self-evaluation part. So as for the acknowledgements, you should acknowledge if your project is funded by any institutions, and you should express your gratitude to those professors and colleagues who have given you feedback and comments to improve your paper. As for the reference list, you should have a full reference list, and in the text, you should have the publication year as well as the names of the authors. And your reference list should be alphabetically organized. So here are some of the do's and don'ts for writing a thesis based on my own experience. So first, do spend some time thinking about and laying out the overall structure and the development of your arguments when you're writing a thesis, and do not start writing immediately without planning. And second, do spend sufficient time to develop your theory and hypotheses. And third, do point out the research gap and the research questions you are addressing up front, so that the readers will not get confused. First, not only state what you will be answering, but also what you will not be answering. And fifth, do give yourself enough time to conduct a thorough literature review and try to categorize and knit your literature review with logic. Do not just simply list out all the relevant studies in the literature. On the other hand, please summarize and categorize those works in the literature in your own way, so that the readers can follow clearly. And six, do provide reasoning on important data collection, cleaning, and methodological decisions and their trade-offs. So you should evaluate how you made the decisions to collect the data and to decide on the samples. And seventh, do take a section to evaluate your own limitations, reflect on the possible flaws in your own methodology. And don't try to hide away your problems with statistical modeling or data collection. And eighth, do keep a detailed list of citations and references when developing and revising the drafts. So keeping a detailed record, make sure that you avoid plagiarism of any sort. So you will not ignore and omit any kind of references at the end. And do use graphs, charts, and tables for visualization so that the readers can understand better. For example, the summary statistics tables, the scatter plots, and the regression tables are all important visualizations. And you should pay enough attention to your writing, grammar, and citations in the first draft. And it would be difficult to correct all your grammar mistakes at the end. So you should have a good grammar from the first draft. And you should consider the trade-off between research significance and riskiness. So sometimes it is very difficult to make a huge research significance. And rather, you should limit your sample or limit the subject of focus so that you have more practical or more realistic research you can tackle if you are an earlier stage researcher. So it is better to focus on a specific research gap than tackling a very broad question, which may be a huge book. And lastly, you should make presentations for research in front of others and seek feedback and organize yourself into a written format after your presentations. And do start research planning early and meet your research goals in steps. So talking about the resources for writing papers, especially the literature review part, you can use Google Scholar, ResearchGate, Academia, SSRN, and Wiley Online Library. And you can even upload your own works in progress to ResearchGate, Academia, or SSRN so that the databases can help you disseminate your work to others. To manage your references, you can use EndNote, Mendeley, or RefWorks. And to write papers, you can even use LaTeX, Overleaf, Lakes, and Scientific Word if you are familiar with markup language and if you do not want to use Microsoft Word. And to check plagiarism, you can use Turnitin and Authenticate. So all of those are helpful tools for you, but some of them you need to subscribe them or you need to pay for them. So not all of them are free.